ESPN draft analyst Adam Schefter, taking us through the ever-changing intel regarding the Browns pick at number 2.
A couple of months ago, I was of the mind and the impression, based on things people told me, that the Browns were likely to go quarterback. And they were. But that was because they wanted Cam Ward. And Cam Ward isn't going to be there at number 2. And so once they realized that, they came off that. And then we shifted to Abdul Carter, where there were a lot of people that felt like the Browns were going to take Abdul Carter and match him opposite Myles Garrett. And you know what? They still could. They still might. But the latest intel now is that I believe Travis Hunter is the more likely pick at 2 today, a couple of weeks out of the NFL draft, for a couple of different reasons. I think the Cleveland Browns watched him on Friday at his pro day, and they saw somebody that could move like nobody else. I think that going into that day, they viewed him as somebody they could play at wide receiver, and I think sprinkle in defensive back. So I think he could play 2 ways for them, but I think they may think of him more as a receiver than a cornerback.
Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. And Jeff, I have no problem if they take Travis Hunter. They need playmakers. We've talked about this.
Well, I think the thing, and this is what maybe I think after, certainly all the stops, whether it was the All-Star games, certainly the combine, and now the completion of the pro days. And if you kind of notice when somebody's name goes up, it's usually right around, when they've had either their pro day, so I like once the name rises, obviously the connection kind of came from that. I think truly, and you ask many people, what's the blue blood? Where is the elite of this class? A lot of people felt, of course, your number one quarterback is usually going to be considered one of the elite prospects in the draft, Cam Ward. Best defensive prospect, Abdul Carter. Travis Hunter, a lot of people believe that as a wide receiver, there's some that are kind of maybe giving some Justin Jefferson type comparisons. He would be the other guy. This isn't a knock on Shedeur Sanders, and this might benefit Shedeur Sanders. The lower he goes in round 1, the odds are better that he maybe goes to a team that is more complete, more ready to go, and unfortunately needs a quarterback. That could work out better for Sanders. But the Browns, look, you need playmakers. You need a bunch of playmakers. Obviously, you need a lot of skill players on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, you're a little bit better off. It doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to ignore defense, but you need probably one more pass rusher there, whether you get it at 2, whether you address it maybe a little bit later. But that gives you stability and length in keeping a unit together on the defensive side of the ball. My only issues with Hunter, and look, Hunter's tape is ridiculously good and really impressive. And look, if the Browns are taking him at 2, I don't think there's any thought process whatsoever in regards to him as a defensive back anytime soon. You are taking him at 2 overall. You want him to refine and get better at whatever weaknesses you think he has currently as a wide receiver. For me personally, though, like I'm big in athletic testing. It's part of how I view players. Hunter unfortunately didn't do any of that. You look at other wide receivers who have gone either number 2 or number 3 in the draft. You're talking about Calvin Johnson. You're talking about Charles Rogers, formerly from Michigan State. Obviously, he flamed his way out of the league. At 3, it was Braylon Edwards. It was Larry Fitzgerald. It was Andre Johnson. All of these guys, much bigger than Travis Hunter. All of these guys did athletic testing, all tested out extremely well. Of these 5 names I mentioned, 3 were surefire first ballot Hall of Famers at the wide receiver position. So if you want to do it, that's fine. I'm totally with it. But, part of it also is for me is it feels like you're working backwards. Again, the Cincinnati Bengals drafted Joe Burrow, came back around later, drafted T. Higgins. Next year, you drafted Jamar Chase. It's kind of like saying we know who our top 2 wideouts are, Jerry Jeudy and Travis Hunter. Unfortunately, we're just not sure who the quarterback is yet.